In today's show, the Blazers have a rough weekend that ends with a bleeping embarrassment. That's what Chauncey Billups called it, and he was right. Let's talk about where they go from here with 71 games remaining. It's Game 11. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. As Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to talk about a bleeping embarrassment. The Blazers got absolutely steamrolled by the shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies on their home floor on Sunday evening. And after the game, Chauncey Billups did not mince words. The first thing he said to the assembled media when he showed up was that was a bleeping embarrassment. And Chauncey Billups was right. It was a bleeping embarrassment. It capped off a rough weekend in which the Blazers lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves and then to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Blazers are not a very good basketball team. Coming into the season, everybody picked them to be one of the 5 or so worst teams in the league, if not lower. It's not a surprise that they are losing basketball games. It's certainly not a surprise to this podcaster. But the way they lost on Sunday night kind of changes the feel a little bit. This was not supposed to be a podcast about bleeping embarrassments. This wasn't even really going to be a podcast about losing, to be quite frankly, because I don't think the results are that grave necessarily. Like, the L's don't matter. The fact that the Blazers are 3-7 in their first 10 games is very believable and totally fine. This is the path they chose. They are a rebuilding team that went in this direction. You knew they were going to lose. Maybe some of you were more optimistic, but if you were honest and also able to look at other rosters in the NBA, you knew this team was going to be in the bottom half of the West, if not at the ding dang bottom. And certainly, if you listen to this podcast, you know that I think they're very likely to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference, right? I don't care about the losses, frankly. I don't really care about the loss to the Wolves on Friday. Who cares? They lose 127-102, but they lose by 25 on Friday. They got walloped. It doesn't matter. But the way they lost, the manner in which they failed to compete on Sunday evening is troubling. That's the problem. And when you get to Game 11 of an 82-game season and the coach is saying swear words to open up his press conference, he's calling your team soft, there are bigger problems here at bay. This was supposed to be a show about Rob Williams, who returned to the court for the first time in over a year after playing just 6 games a season ago, gets back out on the court in his first shift with the Trailblazers. He looks dang awesome. Plays 17 minutes in his debut, scores 13 points, comes away with a couple steals. He was grabbing rebounds. He was just, set screens, finishing lobs, making passes. Like, he was just doing the things that make Rob Williams special. He hit his first 3-pointer of his career spotting up in the corner and knocking one down. This was supposed to be a celebration of little things coming back. This was supposed to be a look at the Blazers changing their starting lineup and inserting Shaedon Sharpe, a move that I had called for in a show last week right after Shaedon Sharpe made his debut. I think this was the correct move for a variety of reasons. This was supposed to be a show of appreciating small little incremental changes and little bits of growth and small things that have changed around this team as they move forward, ignoring the fact that they lose for the most part, because I do not think the results matter. I think they might lose 60 games. I don't think that, and I've known that, I've kind of felt that since July. But to get punked the way they got punked requires a different show. This isn't what I want to do. I want to talk about fun stuff. I'm pro joy. I like having fun. I like offering some sort of, this is like hoity-toity, but I like offering some sort of nuanced takes about a bad basketball team that makes it more fun to enjoy to watch a bad basketball team, without glossing over the fact that you're watching a bad basketball team and then you're listening to a daily podcast about that bad basketball team. I know what this is. I know what I do. I've been doing this for a long time. But it's not that. The Blazers came out. Let's do our fastest recap in the West for Friday against the Wolves. Blazers failed to score for the opening 3 minutes and 49 seconds. When they take their first time out at 7 minutes and 11 seconds, they are 0 for 10 from the field. They're down 10-0. They've committed 2 turnovers, and they're going to be trailing 35-17 after 1. But they kind of hang in the game, thanks in part to a nice second quarter spurt from Rob Williams, who looked really good. They're down 13 at the break. To be down just 13 after the way they started the game, that's probably fine. The Wolves are better than them. Both teams are on the second night of a back-to-back, and the Blazers are wrapping up a road trip. But the Wolves are like, a team that could make the conference finals without squinting again, right? And they rip off a 34-point third quarter to balloon the lead to 98-75. Blazers are down 23. It's pretty much over, and the Wolves cruise from there, 127-102. That's your fastest recap in the West for Friday. And Anthony Edwards just was like walking into three-pointers, and he's awesome and the best player on the courts, and the Blazers didn't really have an answer for him. And they just, it is what it is. They're a team that doesn't shoot very well. They didn't shoot very well in this game. Anthony Edwards made 9 3-pointers. The Blazers made 6. That's tough. That's tough. Who cares? You move on, right? You move on, because in that game, you got a little bit of the Rob Williams look. You got the Donovan Clingan look alongside of Rob Williams in a 2-big lineup. There's some interesting things. Then on Sunday, they come and change the lineup. Shaedon Sharpe gets inserted to the starting lineup. They're going to go with Anfernee Simons and Shaedon Sharpe, along with Toumani Camara, Jabari Walker, Jeremy Grant, not Jabari, who didn't play to the end of the game, and then DeAndre Ayton. Like it's a change up. And then they come out and just get walloped right away. They're down 31-17 after 1 to the Grizzlies. And this is the Grizzlies without Desmond Bane. This is the Grizzlies without Marcus Smart. This is the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. This is the beat-up Grizzlies starting Scottie Pippen Jr. and rookie Jalen Wells and Santi Aldama and Brandon Clark. This is a beat up group, a talented group, and a deeper group than the Blazers. When the game tipped off on FanDuel, the Grizzlies were slight favorites, 1.5-point favorites on the road against the Blazers. Right, like the Blazers they were not picked to win this game, even with all of the circumstances. The Blazers mostly, darn near perfect health. The Grizzlies all beat up, and the Blazers at home. And even then, right, like the prognosticators say, like, yeah, the Grizzlies are a little better, but it's basically a toss-up. Down 31-17 after 1. The Blazers opened the game shooting 6 of 21 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3, and had 10 turnovers. But it wasn't about the results. It swelled to 64-44 at the break, 106-68 after 3 quarters. They lose 134-89 at home. They go 4 of 42 from 3, commit 24 turnovers. I don't even think the margin is that appalling necessarily. The 89 points sticks out. $134 at home is a bunch. 45 is a beat down. Chauncey Billups walked into his press conference after a long wait. Typically what happens is we come down from press row, maybe hang out for 5-6 minutes. The side door opens. Chauncey Billups walks in. He waves to one of the Blazers scorers, official scorers, the back. So, what's up? They wave back. Chauncey Billups sits down. We answer questions. It's pretty quick, very normal. Chauncey Billups walks in 15 minutes later, maybe even longer, 3 times as long as typical. No wave when he walks in. Didn't say what's up. Sits down and says, asked, what do you make of that? Said it was a bleeping embarrassment. This is a family show. I can't swear on this program, and I in my real life, I say a lot of swear words. If you know me, you know that I say a lot of swear words. But you can guess which word he said. It's the one that's an adjective and a noun and a verb. He said it's a bleeping embarrassment. He said that the team played soft all night long. And he said that so many times throughout the season. I think game one, they kind of gave up a little bit when they were getting thrashed by the Warriors. But they didn't give up in the first quarter. They didn't quit in the first quarter. It didn't feel like, oh, they're just not, they just don't have it, and they know they don't have it. Like it felt early in this one. By the time you get to the second quarter, Scottie Pippen Jr. is throwing a through the legs bounce pass to Jake LaRavia on the break. Jake LaRavia and Scottie Pippen Jr. are clowning the freaking Trailblazers. Jay Huff blocked 6 shots in 19 minutes. Jay Huff dominated the Trailblazers. Jay Huff threw in a driving dunk. Santi Aldama had a dunk from behind. a reverse dunk for Santi Aldama from coming on the reverse, like underneath the rim. Clean run. Zach Edey hit a 3 and did the Jalen Brunson cover your mouth thing. Everybody on the team was clowning the Blazers. The whole Grizzlies team clowned the Blazers. So when Chauncey Billups said that's a bleeping embarrassment, he was right. He was right. It was a bleeping embarrassment. What do they do with 71 games left? Because this looked like a team that had let go of the rope. Or as I like to say, had bailed out of the canoe. The river is long. Let's talk about what they do from here. I think there are some simple things, and I think there's a big obvious one that you are yelling into you're maybe you're listening in the car, maybe you're listening on a walk with your dog, maybe you're listening as you do some chores in the morning because you're making this your first listen. You're probably yelling the obvious one. You fire the coach. Sure. But that's probably not even step one. Let's talk about the steps. Let's talk about what they do, because you play like that on Sunday this early in the season. You can't do nothing. All right, join me in the second segment. Let's talk about some absolute musts that they gotta have. Join me there, please, won't ya? First, though, let me tell you about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and it's the spot to get in on all of your NFL action. Tackle it, if you will, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. So if you're watching Monday Night Football, why not visit FanDuel.com and join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Chauncey Billups was asked what his message was to his team after a game like that. After a game where they got clowned. They got clowned. They didn't play hard enough. They didn't play with any effort, any verve. I think typically when teams play bad, you say like, oh, they didn't play hard. Usually that is mischaracterizing an NBA team. It means they play poorly. Like sometimes it's like people confuse effort and execution. It's like, it's like they weren't very effective, so they didn't play hard. Tonight, the Blazers didn't play hard. They played like dogs, and they got dog walked. That's what happens. And so Billups, his message to his team was simple. If you sleep well tonight, you're a loser. If you go back to your house after a game like that and you sleep well, you're a loser. That's a great message. I think that's real tough talk. That is indeed what a group probably needs to hear. I asked Billups, because he's mentioned this in the past, kind of like that he says usually after bad losses, he doesn't like to talk to the teams because that's when things are really emotional. That's when things are like, that's when you kind of can get a little maybe out of pocket. Like you can just like really say things that maybe you don't, the message will be too emotional and not like pointed. He spent an extra 15 minutes in the locker room letting them know. He felt like, as he said, that they needed to hear it, right? That that this was not a time to let this cool. Not a time to say, let's check back in tomorrow. Blazers play Tuesday and Wednesday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that just beat them by 25. Like, this isn't going to get sweeter. You knew the early season was going to be tough, but like when you're a team like on sort of the talent curve where the Blazers are on the talent curve, all the games are going to be tough, right? There's not going to be a lot of easy ones. I think the Blazers played like a team that lacks leadership, a team that lacks clear, defined direction. And that can come from a variety of places. First and foremost, it comes from the coach. Maybe not first and foremost in my actual view. Often, we give credit to the coach as the person who instills that direction. And I think there's absolutely some truth to that. I'm not saying coaches do nothing, but I think players play. Coaching is part of this, though. And Billups said, like, I have to be better, and I didn't have the guys prepared, and you know, I got to be the first person to raise my hand when we play like this. And he does. He has to be accountable for this. But if you're a longtime listener to this program, you know that when the Blazers lost by 60 points the first time last year, not when they did it the second time, less than 3 months later, but when they lost by 60 the first time, I said here on the podcast that I didn't see any reason that Chauncey Billups should be back as the head coach for this season. I'm not really one to rile the pitchforks and scream and yell and all that and like, I told you so nonsense. I think that's boring. And I really also think it's boring to every time you talk about this team say you have to fire the coach. But I am of the belief, and I've held this belief since at least, late January of last season, that Billups is not the guy for this team. But when the team chose not to, when they didn't make the move right away the day the season ended, they chose this path. Eventually, they may fire Chauncey Billups. In fact, there's a decent chance Chauncey Billups doesn't finish out the season because he's in the final year of his contract. He has a team option for the following season. This team isn't very good, and they just lost by 45 points at home, 134-89 to the Memphis Grizzlies on the 11th game of the season, in which they very clearly were not trying, or at least not playing up to a level that would make them somewhat competitive in the first half of a home game in November. This isn't the slog of March and April. This isn't the challenge of post-All-Star break basketball. This is game 11 of the NBA season, and they look like they quit. They played like they didn't, as Chauncey Billups said, they played like they didn't want to be there. They played like they just showed up because they had to. And he was right. So you can fire Chauncey Billups, and he very well may get fired, but that doesn't solve this all in and of itself. Certainly a different and a little more precise, a little more, precise, I think is the correct word here. A very specific and precise and identity that could be formed from the head coach and the full rehaul of the coaching staff, right? There could be value there. But as long as I'm citing myself on a program last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, but in the last couple of weeks, I did a show on the value of veterans, right? And the value of veteran leadership. And I mentioned the show the Blazers are kind of missing the soft magic of leadership, the soft magic of roster building. And it's not just that they're missing like a 37-year-old who's played 14 seasons in the league or whatever. It's that they just, of the players they do have that are seasoned, none of them are the type of like emotional core leaders that can seem to pull the team out of a rut when things go wrong. So you can fire the coach. You can trade the starting point guard. Anthony Simons sucked this weekend. He was bad. And I'm going to do a big show on Anthony Simons and Scoot Anderson and everything tomorrow, and it's sort of the nature of the roster tomorrow. But I want to say this here, like Anthony Simons maybe played one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. He was very, very bad against the Grizzlies. He wasn't particularly good against Minnesota. He was bad in that one too, y'all. He's struggled to begin the season. You could just send him home. You could just be like, hey man, don't come to work on Tuesday. Obviously, they're not going to do that. But like that's not going to solve it either. Like, here's the thing about it. And here's when I mentioned the Blazers are missing the soft magic of roster building, it's that there is an art to being bad. What you want to be is bad and feisty. And for the most part, the Blazers have been feisty this season. But to have a performance like that, and to have had 2 of these now during the season, the first 11 games, where you feel like they've kind of quit. Against Golden State, it took a little while for them just to be worn down. And then they very clearly just like didn't have it, right? And then they're like, well, see ya. This one happened almost right away. Not running back. The first play of the game, they run the Blazers are good for a dribble handoff turnover at least once a game, if not once a quarter, right? They run these soft little dribble handoffs all the time. They get ripped on the first possession of the game because they're just not running it with pace and precision and like, because they're not sharp. So you can fire the coach, you can trade the point guard, you can get rid of Jeremy Grant. You can play Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe steps into the starting lineup and played with almost no force. I don't remember Shaedon Sharpe playing in this game. That's the most damning thing I can say about him. The box score says he took 10 shots. I don't recall them. His first bucket was a putback. I do recall that. I don't recall the other 9 attempts. He played with no force. Every time he's played with no force and played terribly. Jeremy Grant, I guess like the box score says he was fine. He played with no force in this game. DeAndre Ayton, someone who's been criticized for exactly that, played with no force. Those are your vets, Jeremy Ants and DA. You can fire the coach. If those dudes are still the dudes that pull you out of the mud, you're going to spend a lot of time in the mud because they're just not the emotional core type of leaders. The soft magic is missing. So what do they have to do? They have to be accountable as individuals. I mentioned that I think, like, first and foremost, it starts with the coach. I don't think I think that. You may think that. That is an opinion you can hold, and I probably won't even argue with you because I don't care. I do think a team not playing hard reflects on the coaches and coaching. Absolutely. A team not playing hard reflects on the coaching. But it is the responsibility of professional basketball players to show up and play hard. Certainly teams quit on coaches and all of those things and blah, 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 blah. And maybe we're seeing the early obvious signs of that, right? And then in hindsight, it'll be like, remember that game in early November against the Grizzlies when they lost by 45? Yeah, they quit. Like, Chauncey Billups lost the locker room and they had no interest in playing for him, so they stopped. Maybe that's what this is, right? I still don't think that solves the problem in and of itself, but maybe that's it. But I think the onus is on players to play hard. The challenge in the NBA is being there every night. The Blazers are going to play, like I said, they got walloped on Sunday. They got Monday off to figure it out, and then they play Tuesday and Wednesday against a really good basketball team. It doesn't stop for you. It doesn't wait for you to collect yourself. So you got to get going or you're going to get gone. And the Blazers can lose. They can lose. But I think the onus is on Anthony Simons to play with force, even if he continues to shoot terrible bricks. But he took some threes tonight in this game that were just like, I'm not going to swear, but he's heck you threes. Like, just like heck you threes. Like, he just pulls up from 29 feet because the offense hasn't done anything and just chucks one up. He's got to play with force. Even if you send him to the moon, Scoot Henderson took 7 shots and scored 5 points in this game. You need more from him. You need Shaedon Sharpe to play with force. You need Shaedon Sharpe to be someone you feel. The Blazers still can't figure out how to use Deni Avdija. Some of it is just he's a weird fit with this roster, but he goes scoreless in 13 minutes. Deni plays with passion. That hasn't been a problem at all for him. He looked particularly in this game like he didn't know where he was going to fit in, and part of it is because they're playing him with funky lineups. Figure out your rotation, which is hard, but I think they've defined who they're going to play. They're going to play 10 guys with a little bit of Delano Benton and Robert Williams as 9 and 10 on the back half of the roster, joining Scoot, Deni, and Donovan Clingan as your bench guys. Define your roles, figure out what you're going to do, and the players show up to the gym with the intention of competing. I'm not sure that there is a world in which Chauncey Billups saves this team. I have been skeptical of him for many years, and I have said quite frankly and clearly on this very program that the Blazers shouldn't have brought him back for this season. But this isn't to say I told you so. This is to say this is what they are. They're a team with a coach that probably wanted to coach a very clearly said over the summer that he didn't want to coach a rebuilding team, that he was brought in here to coach a very different team, and this is what he's ended up with. A coach in a weird position on a lame duck contract and a group of players, including Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant, who may feel like they're not part of the future. Throw DA in that too, as you see Donovan Clingan come up behind him, right? You get a roster caught in whatever this is. It's not quite purgatory, but they're just in the middle of whatever is going to be next. Good, bad, whatever. They're in the middle, right? They're in the middle of this process. And if you don't make the decisions, if you don't trade Anthony Simons at the trade deadline and then again in the summer, if you don't, same with Jeremy Grant, same with DeAndre Ayton to some extent, like if you don't make those choices and you end up with a odd-fitting roster of players that feel like they're halfway in and halfway out and a coach that knows that he is most of the way out, you're going to end up with more nights like this when it feels like a collection of gentlemen who are hoping that they get to April. That's why I don't think the blame game matters. Fire Chauncey, trade Anthony Simons. If the roster doesn't sort itself out and you don't hire the right type of coach, all of those things, right? Check every box. It doesn't matter. A better coach with the same group, you're going to have the same results but better process maybe, and you can get some players that maybe feel like they're going to be here a little bit better, feel like they're part of the plan a little bit stronger, but you might end up with the same mess if you don't have the type of true leadership and, like I say, emotional core to get you where you want to go. I went super long in this middle segment. My bosses at Locked On want the show to end about now, but I don't want the show to end about now. I want to end with a little positivity. If you made it this far, come with me to pay respects to a Blazer legend. Brian Wheeler passed away this week. Wheels, the longtime voice of the Portland Trail Blazers. We're going to miss him. He hasn't been with the team for a few seasons now, but he is an incredibly important part of my early Blazer introduction, and likely, if you are a longtime fan of this team, an important part of the Blazers for a generation of fans. Let's pay our respects to Brian Wheeler and end this show with a little bit of positivity, because that's what Wheels would have wanted. Join me in the third segment, won't you? Before we get there, let me tell you about Gametime. It's the app that rewards you for procrastinating. It's the spot to buy your last-minute tickets. What makes Gametime great is they got a whole bunch of features that are specifically designed to help you save money, like Gametime Picks. They curate selections when you're looking at whatever you want to go to, on whatever venue you want to go to. You want to go to sporting events, concerts, comedy, theater. They got curated picks with the little Gametime icon when you pull up the arena on your phone, pull up the venue on your phone. You'll see where you can save money. If you want to sit close, want to sit in the middle, want to sit in the back, they've got Gametime Picks to help you save money. I like to toggle all-in pricing, so it shows you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONBLAZERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redemption code LOCKEDONBLAZERS. That's LOCKEDONBLAZERS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listen to Locked On Blazers. Brian Wheeler passed away this week. He was 62. The longtime radio voice of the Portland Trail Blazers, who started his career in 1998 and stopped working for the team in 2019. He's been succeeded by Travis Demers on the radio, and because of my professional relationship with the team, I don't listen to the radio too much anymore. I'm at the games, and I watch them on TV when I'm not at the games. But way back when, that wasn't my relationship with the team. I moved here in 2006. I went to college here, graduated from college, started working in media, and I mostly covered high school sports, and I mostly worked nights. And this was in a time before ubiquitous easy streaming and things like that. Like, you could still get games, but I sat at a desk at a cubicle without a TV. I would listen to Blazer games on the radio with some regularity while I would do some work, like input high school football scores. I would drive around the suburbs covering high school sports, and I would put on the radio and I would listen to Brian Wheeler tell me what happened with his signature booming baritone voice, his Batum shakalakas, and you can once again say it's a great day to be a Blazer. Wheels was my voice of the Blazers because I worked a job where I wasn't always around a TV. I was moving around. I would catch a little bit of the game, or I'd tune in at the end in the parking lot of a Clackamas High School football game and enjoy the game in parts. My favorite Wheels call and memory that I'll always have is a Saturday in the spring of 2011. I was at the Centennial Invitational track meet to cover now multi-time Olympic gold medal winner Ryan Krauser throwing the shot put. I was going to do a story on Ryan Krauser, but it was a lot of track meets, a long day, and I had to cover the whole track meet. Focus on him, but cover the whole track meet. I believe his cousin Haley Krauser threw a javelin like 174 yards or something insane like that. That's too far. 174 feet, whatever it was outrageously far. I spent a lot of time in the sun, took a lot of photos, shot some videos, wrote some stories. I was a multimedia journalist, and I was not near a television. So, this was the time of smartphones, but not ubiquitous smartphone streaming. So I knew the Blazers were in a close game. I checked it on my phone, and I went to the Snack Shack at the Centennial High School Invitational, the Centennial Invitational. I went to Snack Shack at beautiful Centennial High School, and me and the guy who was running the Snack Shack listened to the fourth quarter of Brandon Roy's signature comeback win over the Dallas Mavericks. A spectacular performance, and the last great gift that Brandon Roy gave the city. And the person who narrated it for me, who painted the picture, was Wheels. Radio is really personal. When you're watching a game on TV, you're often watching with friends and family, or sometimes strangers in a public place. When you're listening to radio, you're usually alone. You are staying up late because you weren't allowed to watch television on weeknights, or you are sneaking a radio into your room because it is past your bedtime, or you are driving around the suburbs because you work nights, but you are a budding NBA fan who's hoping to turn it into a career one day. A radio call is for you. Wheels was for me, and Wheels was for you in a way that is deeply personal. When I eventually got on the beat, Brian still worked there. Wheels sat behind me in the seats in 113. And when things would go wrong for the Blazers, and they were pretty competitive then, Wheels would smack the table. A big, loud fist. And you'd hear it. Because he was mad. Because he felt the games like you did. It was personal to Wheels. From 1998 to 2013, Brian Wheeler called 1,359 consecutive games. He didn't miss them until his health in 2013 forced him to miss a road trip, and then he had some intermittent absences after that as he dealt with some health issues towards the end of his career. But for 1,359 nights, Wheels showed up to work and painted you a picture of what it meant to follow your favorite team. And when Wheels was happy, you felt it. When he was excited, you felt it. And when he was frustrated, you felt it. On a night like tonight, Wheels would have been pissed. And I think that is how I'd like to remember Brian Wheeler. Someone who loved and felt the team the way you do and made you love and feel and all of the emotions about a team because his passion was obvious. So on a night like tonight, when the Blazers sucked, it felt like their future is in question because their present is in shambles, Wheels would have been on the mic making you feel every bit of that misery the way he could, because Wheels would have been miserable. He loved this team. So let's honor Wheels the way we can. Showing back up and doing it again. 1,359 games does not happen by quitting. You cannot call 1,300 consecutive games if you do not show up after bad nights. So, in honor of Brian Wheeler, let's do this. Monday's going to be kind of gross, shaking off the hangover of this gross game. We'll do a podcast right here because we're going to come back to work. And then we'll do one on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. That's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I am not Brian Wheeler. I couldn't be. There is only one Wheels. Rest in peace, buddy. And if you love the Blazers or Wheels helped you love the Blazers, feel free to share those memories with me, and I'll be happy to share them here on the air. And then come back tomorrow. We'll talk about this mess some more, because that's what Wheels would have done. He would have gone back to work and talked with passion about the Trailblazers. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.